Today we will look at the correct use of some of the adjectives. What happens in our speaking and in our writing, sometimes the adjectives are wrongly used. So, we are going to closely look at some correct use of some of the adjectives. Okay? The correct use, the correct the correct use of the correct use of some adjectives. Some. That's what we are going to do. We are going to look at the correct use of some of the adjectives. And that's what we're going to do today. Now, first we take little or a little. These are adjectives of quality. So we look at the words little, a little. Let's say little. Then a little. Now, these two are adjectives of quality. So, what are we going to look at? Adjectives of quality. And that's what we are going to dwell on. So, little and a little. What are they? These are adjectives of quality. Adjectives of quality. And now we are going to see how. How is this used in sentence? Okay? These are adjectives of quality and how this little and a little is used in sentences. Let's look at it. Now, little is a negative adjective. It means not much. When you say little, it's a negative adjective and which means not much. Okay, hardly any. That's what we mean. So let's say the first one we are talking about, when we talk about little. When we say little, what do we mean? Little is first of all, a negative adjective. Negative adjective. Okay, let's look at this negative adjective. And it means what? Not much. Means not much. Not much. Or you will say hardly any. Hardly any. That's what you mean when you say little. Okay. Now let's look at the sentences. So we are looking at little, a little. Now, when I say little, he has little common sense. What do we mean? When I say he has little common sense, that means not much. Okay? All right. Now, he has little common sense. Now, when you say little common sense, you say not much. He doesn't have much. He hardly has any common sense. That's what we mean. Now, there is, next one, there is little hope. There is little hope of her recovery. That means not much, hardly any hope, may not recover. That's what we mean. So, when we say he had little common sense, means not much common sense, hardly any. There is little hope of her recovery. There is not much hope, hardly any, anything can happen. So that's what we mean here, little. Then, he has little influence with his fellows. Not much influence. The next sentence. He has little influence influence with his followers. Okay, here we mean hardly any. Okay, not much. It doesn't have much influence. That's what we mean. And the next sentence, he gained little advantage from the scheme. Very little, not much. Okay. He gained little advantage from the scheme. Hardly any, not much. He did not get anything much from the scheme. That's what it means. So, we are looking at the correct use of some adjectives. Now, we are mainly looking at little, meaning this is a negative and is an adjective of quality, and little means not much, hardly. So, he has little common sense. He has not much common sense. There is little hope of a recovery, hardly any. Anything can happen. He has little influence with his followers. Over his followers, he has hardly any influence. He gained little advantage from the scheme. In the scheme, we got hardly anything, nothing much. That's what it means. Now, let's look at a little. What does it mean? A little is an affirmative adjective. So we are looking at taking the second one, a little. It's an affirmative adjective and means some at least. Some at least. So certain quality, however little. Even if nothing, however a little. So the second one, we are looking at the second one, that is a little. A little. When you say a little is an affirmative. It's an affirmative adjective. Affirmative adjective, and it means, what does it mean? It means some at least. Some at least. Some at least, or you can also say however little. Okay? When you talk about quantity, quantity, then we'll say however little. However little. Okay. Now, we are looking at a little. We are looking at a little, and it is an affirmative adjective and mean some at least, or however little. That's what it means. Okay, now let's see sentences that I have for you. He spent only a little money on himself. That means he spent some at least. Okay, so that's the first sentence. A says, he spent only a little money. Only a little money on himself. Money on himself. Which means some at least he spent, a little bit he spent. Next sentence, he gave me a little butter, a little bit of butter. Okay? When you say quantity, however little he gave. Not much, a little. So the next one is, he gave me a little butter. A little butter. Gave me a little butter. Meaning, however little, or we're talking about quantity, so a little bit was given. Next. A little knowledge is a dangerous thing. So you won't know anything about it and you simply talk rubbish. A little knowledge is a dangerous thing. So that's the third sentence I have for you. A little knowledge. A little knowledge is a dangerous thing. So, little knowledge means some at least, very little. And finally, a little care would have prevented the end. So the next sentence is, a little care, a little care would have prevented the accident. Okay, now let's look at what we have done so far. Okay, now we are looking at the correct use of some adjectives. Little and a little, these are adjectives of quality. Now, when you say little, it's a negative adjective and it means not much or hardly any. Okay, so in little, let's look at the 4 sentences I have. He has little common sense. That means not much. He has hardly any common sense. There is little hope of her recovery. Not much hope, that means. He has little influence with his followers. Hardly any. Not much influence over his followers. He gained little advantage from the scheme. So although he took the scheme, he did not get anything much. Okay? He got very little. Finally, the second part, a little. A little is an affirmative adjective meaning some at least. When you talk about quantity, however, little. And we have 4 sentences here. He spent only a little money on himself. That means he spent some at least, a little bit. He gave me a little butter. Little butter means however little. Okay? A little knowledge is a dangerous thing. He's got some knowledge, a little bit, and is trying to show off. So that's very dangerous. Must be careful. A little care would have prevented the accident. That means some, at least, if he would have been careful, a little more care would have prevented the accident. So what did we see here? Little and a little are adjectives of quality. Little is a negative adjective and means not much. A little is an affirmative adjective, means some at least. So we saw how this adjective of quality and this affirmative adjective, a little and little, how it's used in sentences.